Go.
Good evening. We're at our next installment of the Tuesday Talks. And tonight we're going to talk about, are we ever allowed to lie? So in a study done in a book called The Day America Told the Truth, they're trying to ask about truth-telling. So they actually they did the survey anonymously to make sure that people would tell the truth about their truth-telling. And what they found, Jim Patterson and Peter King, was that most people answered that they admitted they in fact did lie regularly. Okay? And I guess they knew that because that's why they did the study anonymously. Right? Now, when people lie, why do they lie? They lie often for self-enhancement, right? Because we want to look good. We want people to think better of us. I'm spending the weekend in the Hamptons. We've casually dropped, when actually I'm staying at a hotel in Hampton Bays. Smoker tells people, oh yeah, I'm trying to quit. I'm really working on it, and they've been doing that the last 3 years. When they want people to know, yeah, I'm smoking, but really I'm trying to quit. So this is what we might call antisocial lying. Antisocial lying is lying that is for our own self-interest. Now, this actually isn't formal antisocial lying. Antisocial lying is for our interest, and it harms others. For instance, we say that our boss stole in order to get him fired so that I can be promoted to his position. Okay, that would be a pretty egregious case of it. So we're also going to look at pro-social lying. Pro-social lying is when we're not doing it for our own self-interest, and it's not harmful to others, but there are other motivations why we will lie, which are to help other people. We'll get to that. So the first question is, why is lying so bad? Is lying bad? Yes, I'm getting yes from everyone. Why? Okay, so I stretch the truth a little bit. Why is it bad? You're supposed to tell the truth. Why? Okay, the 9th commandment, do not lie. Very good. Okay, that's a reason not to lie. What else? What else can we think of in terms of why we would lie? Actually, the Talmud says that the seal of the Almighty, God's seal, is truth. So we should live according to that. That's another reason given. What else? Is this false vows the type of which you need to say kol nidre for? Might be, that's a possibility as well. We're told, the rabbis say, that the world stands on 3 things. One of them is emet. The world stands on truth. What does that mean? It means basically if you lie, you get into trouble. Okay, first of all, you got to keep track of all your lies and be consistent. Okay? And often we slip up and then, you're in a big mess. Another reason is that when we lie, the world stands on 3 things. On truth, but lying disrupts that. Another reason is that when you lie, I'll give you an example. In the 1967 war, the Egyptian generals were telling Nasser, we're winning, we're wiping the Israelis. Of course, their whole air force had been wiped out. The Israelis were rumbling down into the Sinai, but they kept this up for 2-3 days. As a result, the Jordanians figured, let's jump in on the winning side. The Jordanians joined the war, attacked Israel. Israel kept telling the Jordanians, we've no beef with you. You stay in your place. We won't do anything. They attacked Israel and subsequently lost Yehuda and Shomron, commonly known as the West Bank, which today is a matter of big dispute. Their generals had told the Egyptians the truth. The Jordanians might not have jumped into the war. So, and worst of all, perhaps, is when you tell lies, you start telling lies to yourself. I spoke to a woman recently who broke up after almost getting engaged. And basically she said, Rabbi, the red flags were there. I just didn't want to face them. In a sense, she was lying to herself. She was just putting on the blinders, not facing it, because when we have to tell the truth, there are often consequences which are very uncomfortable, right? Either I can't advance my job, or something embarrassing that I don't want to admit, or in her case, relationships you'd have to break up from, and it would be emotionally difficult. So that is also why lying can be painful and counterproductive. The rabbis say that sheker ein lo raglayim, lies have no truth. Please. And let me show you what they mean. But truth has a foundation. If you look at the letters of truth, emet, and then the letters of lies, sheker. So emet, if you look at the letters, they have 2 legs, a base, 2 more legs. What do you see when you see sheker? The shin has 1 point. Well, the cursive shin would be like this with 1 point. Kuf 1 point and the resh 1 point. Sheker ein lo raglayim. Lies have no legs. It doesn't stand up. It topples over easily. Whereas the truth, in addition, is the first letter in the Aleph Beit, the middle letter in the Aleph Beit, and the last letter in the Aleph Beit. It spans all reality. It's solidly grounded. Sheker, the letters are mixed up. The kuf and shin and the resh are out of order. It's all jumbled, and it doesn't stand up. So that's what we have to say about truth and lying. The prophet Zechariah, if you look at the first text in your sheet, the remnant of Israel shall not do iniquity, nor speak lies, neither shall a deceitful tongue be found in their mouth. We're told as a Jew to strive not to lie. Now, in the book of Exodus as well, it tells us, text number 2, distance yourself from a false matter. Davar sheker tircha. Now, that is different than, it's not the 9th commandment of do not lie. Why that is, we'll get to in a minute. But what is this saying? What does this imply? Distance yourself from falsehood. Is that stronger or weaker than do not lie? Why does it say it in that convoluted way? Why doesn't it just come out and say don't lie? So it might imply don't be even involved in something that is called avak, like even the dust of lying, even something that borders on lying. We'll see what examples of those are. Or on the other hand, it might mean something else. It might mean what? What could it mean? It could mean try and stay away from it. In other words, it's not an absolute statement. It might just be kind of like, well, try and stay away. So we'll have to see. Either possibility, but it's very interesting the way it's formulated. That it doesn't just say do not lie. Okay. So what we're going to see is, first of all, our second understanding of distance yourself from falsehood is not an absolute statement, which means that there are going to be situations where I might consider lying. Okay? Susan and Joan just finished a piano recital in front of 200 people. During Susan's recital, she made a mistake, and she felt like Joan had a lot more applause than she did. She asked Joan, she said, when I made a mistake, did the crowd notice? What do you say to her? Oh yeah, you really messed up. Right? It's the truth. Gotta tell the truth. Or do I not? You ever been in a situation where you have to break up with someone and they say, well, why are you breaking up with me? What happened? I thought you loved me. And you don't want to tell them that, you're not really an expressive person, or you're not stable, or you're not reliable. You don't really want to say that to their face, right? So, well, I'm not at that place, or I don't feel it anymore, right? You kind of couch it a little, okay? So, this is the question. are we allowed to lie to not make someone feel bad, to not hurt someone's feelings? So the Talmud looks at the book of Genesis, an interesting story, probably familiar with the story. The angel comes to Sarah and tells her, you're going to have a child. She's in her older age, and what does she do? She laughs. Now, what is that laugh? Is that a laugh of joy or disbelief? It looks like a laugh of disbelief. She says to God, she says, how can I have a child? I'm past the age of having children. Someone just told me about a family friend with a child at the age of 67. But Sarah said, I'm past the age of having children, and my husband's old. How's this going to happen, God? And God goes to Abraham and says, Abraham, why did Sarah laugh like this? What's going on here? And say that she was too old. Now what the Talmud points out is that what is left out here? What is left out here? What's left out is that God did not tell Abraham that his wife said he was old. The Talmud says even the Almighty will change things in order to not hurt a person's feelings. Okay? So that's what is invoked in terms of being able to change the truth to not hurt a person's feelings. Okay? Now, what about, so that's one example. There you can kind of understand it, right? You don't want to be blunt with someone, tell me, I have trouble making friends with people like me. Let's say the person's a little rough around the edges. You're not going to tell them, you know what, you're okay. You're not going to say that to them, right? You're not. So that we understand. What about lying to make someone feel good? Here we're going a little further, right? So certainly the Torah itself says one is not allowed to flatter. Oh, you look great today. You're trying to curry favor with your boss when you don't really mean it. Oh, you're such a great guy. I'll hang out with you. So that you're clearly not allowed to do. But let's take another case, okay? The rabbis asked, the day of her wedding, what do you say to a bride? Are you allowed to say to her, you look so beautiful? Well, let's just say that she's not, on the 8 and above in the scale of 10. What do you say? So in good Talmudic form, there's debate. Hillel says that, here we go, text number 3. How does one dance before the bride? There's a mitzvah to make her joyful. So what do I do? And what do you usually say? You get to what you say. You look so beautiful. That's what you say to a bride. So Shammai says, we praise her as she is. She's not beautiful. You can tell her your dress looks gorgeous. Okay? Hillel, on the other hand, says, we say that she is beautiful and graceful. We praise her to the hilt. Shammai says to Hillel, if she was lame and blind, do you go around saying that she is beautiful and graceful? The Torah says, distance yourself from a false man. And even if we want to say, looks are subjective, but still, come on. So Hillel said to Shammai, according to you, let's say someone went and bought something, and they got ripped off. It was a bad deal. Are you going to go say to them, hey, you got the bad end of the deal? No, you're not going to make them feel bad. So even you would admit that you don't want someone to feel bad. And so therefore you need to praise the bride. You need to tell the groom how beautiful his bride is. Okay? And the Talmud adds it. Seemingly, at least Hillel would certainly say, you can change on the truth in order to make someone feel better, not make them feel better. So Tosfot, the commentary, says that sure enough, that Shammai would agree that in the case of a bad purchase, you don't want to make the person feel bad. But in the case of the bride, notice that's a one-off situation. Now what we're going to see is that even those who say sometimes you can lie, there are going to be certain preconditions. One is that you don't do it systematically. You don't just say, anyone in a wedding, anything goes. Why? Instead you're just opening the door to say to people, oh, you can lie when you want. And that we wouldn't allow. So even Shammai would admit that sometimes you don't want to hurt a person's feelings. You tell them, yeah, nice car. So they got a lemon. But in the case of weddings, we're not going to give a blanket statement to say that anyone can lie at any time. Okay? Now, there is our other context. We talk about lying to not make someone feel bad. What about if someone is ill? What do you say to them? What do? You tell them the truth? Sorry, you got a leak.
Yes.
Do. Why?
Because if it's something like this, you should tell for the person to prepare.
So there's an idea of wanting the person to be able to prepare, but what if it puts them in such a distressed state? Maybe that's going to make things worse.
Yes, but the person in the end needs to know if they are near.
So, Jeremy, making a good point. This is very interesting because the Code of Jewish Law, the Shulchan Aruch says, you have it here, 168, if a person is dying, you should not make it known to them, lest they lose their mind and cry in front of them. Code of Jewish Law says you do not. Now, in our day and age, you'd be opening yourself to all sorts of legal liabilities if you didn't. But there is another point here. The point is that you're supposed to always give the person hope and uplift them. So you say to them, you can pull out of this, we can lick this, even if the odds are 95, 98 to 1. Now, if you're a person of faith, that's not a lie. There's an idea that even if the sword is hung over a person's head, God can still save us. And we can look online, stories of a friend of mine's mother just passed away 20 years ago. The doctor said she's got months to live. Live 20 years. So if you're a person of faith, you say it, you believe it. But even if you're not, you're allowed to tell the person, you're always supposed to tell the person, you're going to pull through, we're going to lick this, you've got hope, it's going to happen. Because that is therapeutic. That helps their condition. It might help them pull through by doing that. So that is certainly allowed, and the Code of Jewish Law says that. Now, like I said, today you might want to say, the doctors give this prognosis, however, right? But basically, what we're saying is that we're permitting changing the truth in order to not hurt a person's feelings or in order to make them feel better. How could this be? So what the Ritva, Rabbi Yom Tov ben Abraham says, one of the medieval Talmudic scholars, is that basically what is happening here is that yes, we said truth is God's seal and truth is paramount, but we're saying something in addition. We're saying that there are two competing values of truth versus peace. Okay? Life isn't always black and white. And if you're trying to be exacting with one type of behavior, often it's the expense of a different one. So I'm trying to say, I am going to be a truthful person. Yeah, but what about peace? What about people's feelings? And ultimately what we see from here is that, at least in the cases we've already mentioned, that when it comes to peace versus truth, what wins out? Peace. Okay. Now, what about do not lie? That seems to be, the ninth commandment seems to be an absolute statement. Okay? So what do we do with that? Now, one thing that the Talmud points out, that they point out in the language of the Talmud does not say you can lie in order to make a person feel good. It says you can be meshanim. You can change. What does that mean? So first of all these contexts, all these situations we're talking about are what we call pro-social behavior, right? To avoid a person being hurt or make them feel good. What about an antisocial behavior where someone might lose out? Let me give you an example. You're in a court of law, right? You want to sue someone. Why? They owe you money and they're not paying up. The problem is, in Jewish law, you need 2 witnesses. You don't have 2 witnesses. So you know 2 other people who were taken by this person. Let's say it was Madoff before it became public. You know 2 other people who were scammed. And they don't have witnesses either. So what you do is you say, listen guys, we all know that this person did this. We can corroborate. We have 3 witnesses right here. The only problem is there are 3 separate incidents. So strictly speaking, in Jewish court, you cannot bring in these witnesses. So you know what we'll do? You 2 will say that you saw him scamming me, and we'll split what we're going to get back from him in 3. Allowed? You know the guy did it. Allowed or not allowed? You know, this is the narrative of every other cop show, right? Right? They plant the evidence, even though we know he's guilty, we just got to catch him. Hey, we'll plant an ounce on him, and then we'll pull him in, and we got him, right? And then leave you at the end. The moral dilemma. So, we said before, you can lie. So, the Talmud says that antisocial lying in court, this is absolutely forbidden. Shavuot 31a, the Talmud says that, and this is how we understand it, the 9th commandment is strictly defined as, in a court of law you may not bear false witness. That is, we are absolute about. That there's no equivocating. That is an absolute commandment. We're fundamentalists about that. Even the OJ case, right? They knew he did it. O.J. Simpson. The civil court convicted him. You would say, why can't the criminal court get its act together or figure out how to just haul him in? We all know he did it. Because courts seek the rule of law, not necessarily justice. And the ends do not justify the means, right? The court of law, the means are absolute, because you start lying about convicting people you know are guilty, then what's going to happen? You're going to start lying about convicting people who maybe aren't guilty, or getting off people who are. So that's one approach, is that we're absolutists about it in the court of law. Outside of the court of law, we do allow it. Another approach to explaining the discrepancy between don't lie versus distance yourself is that if a problem already exists, then you can lie in order to fix it. But if a problem doesn't exist, then you cannot lie to make someone feel good. I guess Hillel would consider it a problem because everyone knows the bride is the most gorgeous, so it's kind of like the elephant in the room, maybe. So this is particularly illustrated when you lie in order to keep peace between 2 people, in order to resolve people who are fighting, or in order to make so people won't fight, where clearly there's a situation to fix. I'll give you 2 examples from the Talmud here. So 5a. Rav was constantly tormented by his wife. This is the Babylonian Talmud, Yevamot 63a. He was tormented by his wife. If he told her, I'd love to have lentils for dinner, she would make him peas. And if he asked for peas, in the morning said, oh, it'd be great to eat some peas tonight, what would she do? She would make him lentils. Okay? She fulfilled her wifely duty of preparing dinner for him, but with a zest, as they say. When his son Achia grew up, he gave his father's instructions in reverse order. So apparently, Rav would go out in the morning and tell his son, tell your mother I want lentils today. Chia would, being a smart guy, would say, I know if I tell my mother lentils, she's going to prepare rice. So I'll tell my mother to prepare rice. She'll prepare lentils, which is what my father asked, and everyone will be happy, right? So the father said to his son, your mother has improved. Look at this, I'm getting what I want. And the son, not being able to hold himself back, says, actually, Dad, I'm the one who orchestrated this. He said, I reversed the order of what you asked in order to get you guys to stop fighting. So, it quotes a biblical verse here. This is why they say, children teach you reason. Children sometimes have better insight than adults do. However, he says to his son, you shouldn't do this anymore. It's well-intentioned, but you should not do it anymore. Why? He says, because they taught their tongue to speak lies, and they weary themselves. It's tiring to constantly tell lies, to keep track. So what does this invoke? What we said before. One-off, maybe someone can do it. But if son every day has to start flipping around the orders, not something that should be done. Okay? Another context, okay? It says that Aaron, Moses' brother, became a high priest. He had the quality not just of loving peace. Everyone loves peace, right? Do you love peace?
I love peace.
You love peace? You love peace? Okay, what are you doing about it? I don't know, but I love it, right? So Aaron didn't just love peace, he pursued peace. What does that mean? Rodef Shalom.
He was
Very popular
proactive.
name for synagogue. Yes, Rodef Shalom means to pursue peace. And this is what Aaron did. It says, 5b, when two men fought, Aaron sat with one of them, said, son, let me tell you what your friend is doing. He's sitting in his corner, beating himself over his breast, and tears in his clothing, and saying, woe to me! How can I face my friend after treating him so badly? I feel so bad about the way I screamed at my friend. I'm embarrassed. I'm ashamed of how I lost my temper with him. And the implication is, but he's too embarrassed to come and tell you. Aaron would stay with the person until all their resentment was removed. Because, oh, he feels so bad. Okay, well, I'll forgive him. And then he goes to the other guy. He does that with Sam. He goes to Joe. He says, Joe, Sam feels so bad. And he's sitting in his corner and he's crying and saying, whoa, what did I do? And he's saying, but he's ashamed of what he did. And he sits with Joe until Joe says, oh, you know what? It's okay. He feels so bad. I'll forgive him. And the two of them come together and they would hug and kiss each other. So what did he basically do? He basically lied to both of them to get them to make peace. So here you see it. This is once again a one-off, right? It's not habitual that he's doing with every person. He's doing in situations where people are fighting. And we're told here that he's allowed, that this was a praiseworthy quality. Yeah.
Yeah, we always see this in movies and TV sitcoms, and they always find out that
You can see like the honeymooners.
and then it just makes it worse at the end, knowing that they didn't actually feel that
Who was
way.
Ralph's buddy? What's his name? Ed. Was it Ed? I think it's Ed. Now Ralph and Ed, they this big blowout. And then Ed, oh, you feel so bad. Find out, right? Look, that's why they said it's wearying to tell lies because you got to make sure all your bases are covered. But what we do see here is once again, one could still say that he's not outright lying, he's just changing it. Why? Because we assume somewhere in this person's heart there is actually a sentiment of, well, maybe I shouldn't have done it. Right? So once again, this idea of changing the truth. Okay? God told a white lie, he left out the part of your husband is old. Aaron saying, well, he regrets it. He probably does on some level. Another case in the Torah book of Genesis, after Jacob dies, remember, Joseph's brothers sell him down the river. And then he becomes viceroy of Egypt. And for 17 years, they're all living okay, in peace, but they're separate. Jacob dies. Joseph's father dies. And the brothers are terrified. They think Joseph's just been holding back because Dad's around. Once Dad's out of the picture, he's going to let us have it because we sold him down the river for 20 years. So the brothers go to Joseph and they say, Joseph, our father told us to tell you after he died that you should not take revenge. Now the rabbis say Jacob never said such a thing. And this is pro-social, anti-social line. They're doing it for their own self-interest. Is it right? Is it not right? So far, we've seen pro-social interest, to not hurt someone, to get people to make peace. We understand. But what about when you do have self-interest in it? Are you allowed to lie in that case? So it gets stickier. It gets much stickier. Famous case of Jacob and Esau, where Jacob buys the birthright from Esau, who clearly isn't fit to continue the family mantle passed down by Abraham and Isaac of righteousness and goodness. Did not characterize Esau. Esau sells him the birthright. A number of years later, when their father's old, what does Esau do? His mother says, dress up like your brother and go get the blessing from your father. You bought it. It's yours. Jacob doesn't say, Mom, that's a lie. I can't trick my father. What does he say? I don't look like Esau. How can I do that? So this leads to the sticky question of, do the ends justify? And the commentators all struggle with this. And they come up with a very puzzling conclusion. Because even though, by and large, they say Joseph was justified. And by the way, Esau manipulated the father Isaac. He made the father Isaac think he was so pious, when in fact he wasn't. So that's another justification. Esau is manipulating his father. And Jacob bought the birthright. By all accounts, he is entitled to the blessing. But are you allowed to deceive your father? And the rabbis say that when Esau found out that Jacob got the blessing, he cried tears. Said those tears would bring future suffering to the Jewish people in the hands of the descendants of Esau. So what they kind of say is, yes, he was justified in doing it, in lying, the means justifying the ends, the means which were deceitful to get to the ends which was justified, in being the one who could carry on the family traditions. However, even though he was justified, it seems like he was going to have to pay a moral price for his lying, which is very morally troublesome. It's justified, but the means aren't good ones, so he's held accountable for these somewhat questionable means that he used. So, in some ways, the answer is not always so black and white. Even if you are allowed to, at times, maybe there's still a present. Let me give you two other scenarios, okay, where lying, it said, is allowed kind of across the board. It says a Torah scholar is allowed to lie about three things. Is allowed to cover up three things. Okay? One is their study. If they finished a tractate of the Talmud, tractate of the Talmud can sometimes take months and months and years to study, to know well. The rabbis say the definition of a Talmud Chacham, a Torah scholar, is someone who has mastered a volume of the Talmud. You're allowed to lie if someone says, oh, did you master that? And there is a tradition of great saintly figures, from the Arizal, Rabbi Isaac Lurie, the great Kabbalist, to the Baal Shem Tov, the founder of the Hasidic movement, who for years kept up a pretense of being unlearned, ignorant, all barely being able to read Psalms, when they were in fact brilliant scholars and great spiritual personalities. And they'd deceive everyone. They'd make everyone think that they were not intelligent and not particularly outstanding. Why? Out of humility. Because they didn't want to broadcast it. Because first of all, maybe they wanted to be kept left alone. And there was this incubation period of 10 years that these great spiritual figures, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai was in a cave for 10 years. Rabbi Lurie was by a riverside, isolated. But the Baal Shem Tov was the beadle in the synagogue. Beadle, great word. guy who kind of cleaned up the synagogue, made sure the Torah scroll was in the right place. Usually the unlearned, pious person might do that. So you're allowed to be left alone out of humility, because if someone knows you're great, what's the problem? It's to your head. Ego. So a Torah scholar is allowed to lie about their scholarship. That's 5D. About sorry, I don't have the text feature. Oh, here it is. 6A. About great knowledge, about his intimate life, okay? Meaning intimacy between husband and wife is not something that is broadcast, okay? That is shared publicly, despite the reality TV show age, not Jewish values, something that's kept very private and intimate, okay? And the third thing, the third category is if a person has given him hospitality. Someone invited you, you know, that shirt people, you have a house in the Hamptons, people have t-shirts that, you know, I never made so many friends as when I got my house in the Hamptons, right? All of a sudden everyone's your friend looking for an invitation to be invited out. So, let's say a Torah scholar was invited to someone's home, and say, oh, you know, we invited to this person's home, and you think, oh, well, if I tell them, they're going to go and get an invitation, they're going to go to them, oh, I heard so-and-so was at your home, hint, 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 why don't you invite me too? And it might cause undue pressure upon that person. You're allowed to lie. Because maybe he really just extended himself for the Torah stuff. So you're allowed to say, oh, no, you know, I didn't go to this house. So those three things, it says a Torah scholar is allowed to lie about. Why only a Torah scholar?
But has knowledge to decide.
So first of all, it's saying you need kind of this kind of intuitive balance to know when is it okay to lie, to change the truth, to not hurt someone's feelings. When is it not okay? You also, a Torah scholar, because we said before that, you know, the person lies, then they become in the habit of lying, right? What did he say to the child? You have taught their tongue to speak lies, they weary themselves. One interpretation of that is, they weary themselves of constantly being strong and telling the truth, which takes moral character, takes moral fiber, takes strength of character to do so. So, if you start lying even for justified things, it's easy to slip into starting to lie about unjustified. Why? Because you get in the habit of it. They say, you know, you do something once, it's uncomfortable. Do something twice, then, yeah, you know, it's kind of like, yeah, I still shouldn't do it. Do it 3 times, you feel like it's permitted. So perhaps it's saying that a Torah scholar is the one who will be able to keep that moral fiber even when they're lying in justified context. But we are certainly wary that it'll become something habitual, as we said before. If it's context like, oh, every wedding you can lie at, not a good thing, because people will just think, oh, it's okay, I can do it. So the Torah is very wary of it. And so finally, the last area of not being allowed to lie, this is very important. If someone has something wrong, if they have a deficiency, okay, especially it said in the context of dating. Let's say you know someone has a medical history, okay? They're not allowed to lie about it because we'll have long-term implications, okay? So once again, antisocial lying, things that will give you benefit that other people might be hurt by, there we almost say across the board, one should not lie. Yeah.
But you don't need to say the truth as well. You have a medical issue, you just don't mention.
No, one has to tell the truth.
But you are not telling, you're not lying, but you don't need to tell everything about your life.
Something which has long-term implications, you do. In fact, if someone gets married and they find out the person has, gambling issue, alcoholism, or maybe even a congenital medical issue that they did not tell them about, and they want to get divorced, and the person refuses to allow them to get divorced, they might be able to nullify the marriage because it's considered to be a deceitful marriage, wet marriage. If the person had known this, they might not have gone into it. It's something that will have long-term consequences. One has to share with the other person. So, in conclusion, what we said is that the Torah, when the Torah says do not lie, that is really in the context of a court case. That's saying in a court of law, witnesses can never lie, even if they know the person was guilty. You cannot make up evidence or make up testimony, even if you know it's justified. In other situations, we invoke the verse of the Torah that says, keep distant from a false matter, which really means try and stay away from it. However, if it's to not make someone feel bad, right? Someone says, did someone say this bad thing about me? Why? Make them feel bad. Is my wife beautiful? Yes, she's beautiful, right? To not make someone feel bad, to not hurt someone's feelings. In all of those contexts, we said that one would be allowed to lie. If someone is ill, to weaken the blow of the reality of what's going on with them, one is allowed to lie. All of these cases is distance yourself from lying, but we're not absolutely about it. There is one final context where distance yourself from lying could mean what someone said before. Don't even go near it. Okay, let me tell you, there's a whole other category which is called Gedevas Das, deceiving people. Okay, and one of the most common cases of this, of deceit, is you're not allowed to give a person the wrong impression. Let's say you go to the hospital. The rabbi goes to the hospital to visit Harry, who's on the 8th floor. And he takes his visit, and Harry says, oh, by the way, Rabbi, Sam, our fellow congregant, is on the 6th floor. He also was just admitted to the hospital. So the rabbi goes down to the 6th floor, walks into Sam's room. Rabbi, I can't believe it. You came here just for me. I feel so special now. I feel better now. What do? You say, oh, okay, let him be in his bliss. No. You have to tell him, Sam, I really care about you. I'm so glad to be here. But to tell you honestly, I came to the hospital to visit Harry, and then I found out you were here. Now, if it's really true that if I heard you were here, I would come for you, you can say that, but you can't give him the impression that you came for him when you didn't. That's called Gedevas. So, distance yourself from falsehood. Might be any even implication, even if you don't say it, even if someone implies something false, you shouldn't allow that, the person to conclude that. But if it's to not hurt someone's feelings, then we said that Alexander Pope, the poet, said, blunt truths more mischief than nice falsehood. Okay, blunt truths sometimes can cause more harm than mischief. Okay, and but ultimately, what the Talmud says is that you should be very careful when you do invoke these situations where you're allowed to lie. Do it very sparingly. Don't do it on a regular basis. Make sure you're objective. Don't do it for your own self-interest, and make sure that it doesn't become something that becomes habitual. So we are not fundamentalists, but at the same time, we're very wary of going into that area. But sometimes the value of peace wins out over the value of truth. In the Torah, we've seen that ultimately peace is more powerful, more important than truth. Any questions? Situations, yeah.
Let's say someone said that they will do something. Anything. You Jewish relation of 100, they will keep 100.
I'll go to the synagogue every week.
Let's say something, and he doesn't go. The person asks, are you going? If you say yes, that person is going to be happy. If you say no, you probably won't have
You can
shalom.
promise to someone else, I promise you I'll go every week.
Something like this. What are you supposed to do?
Well, let's analyze it. This is very clearly for your own personal benefit. Why are you lying? So, well, I'm lying to not make them feel bad. Not to make them feel bad that I disappointed them. That's not really the context we're talking about. We're talking about where you don't want to hurt their feelings. Saying they're not, don't look attractive, or someone said something mean about you. But to lie about my own behavior so that they won't feel bad about me, to bolster my image in their eyes, I don't think that flies. Okay? Once again, where one's own self-interest gets thrown in, very wary of it.
I like the point.
Right? I mean, we did say that Jacob had his own self-interest, but some of the commentators viewed his behavior as maybe justified with being proper. So that's one of the litmus tests. Another litmus test is that you're going to have to do it every week, and you're in big trouble. You know, you marry someone and say, "Yeah, I'll go to synagogue every week," and then I've got to leave every Saturday morning. What are you going to do every Saturday morning at 9 o'clock? You know, just hope they have a very early matinee at the movie theater. I don't know, right? And what if they one day decide, "Oh, I'm going to walk to synagogue and go meet you on your way home," and you're not there, right? So, not good. Okay, we're all good. So next week we will be talking about medical ethics and talking about end-of-life issues, beginning of life issues and end-of-life issues. When does life begin? And issues of abortion, and when does life end? And issues of euthanasia. So that's next in our Jewish ethics series.
And cut.